Okay, Mr. Chairman, we are now live.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a virtual meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee of the London Borough of Hillingdon. This virtual meeting is also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon London. My name is Councillor Martin Goddard, and I'm the Chairman for this meeting. Before we start, some important online housekeeping for everyone present. Firstly, please ensure that any mobile phones around you are on silent. Secondly, please keep your microphone muted when not speaking and then unmute to speak. Only one person should speak at any time, and I as Chairman will call on those to speak and will keep an eye on the room through my gallery view on those indicating. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd like to carry out a roll call of everyone present. So please confirm your name and indicate when I call you. Firstly, the committee members. Councillor Lynn Allen.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carol Melvin.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next, the officers attending the meeting. Lois King, Licensing Officer.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Kerry Munro, Legal Advisor.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Neil Fraser, Democratic Services Officer.
Present, Chairman. Thank you.
The applicant from Trading Standards, Mr. King Yip Cho.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The licence holder, Mrs. Tal.
Present.
Forgive me, is Mrs. Tal actually there? Or
yes.
She's right.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. Responsible authorities, I believe it's PC Butler on behalf of the police.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And representing the licensing authority, Mr. Daniel Ferrer.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, we also have Mr. Panchal, who's the representative of the...
Thank you. Mr. Panchal, how could I forget you? My apologies.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm present.
I do apologise. In terms of technical meeting control, if any councillor leaves the virtual meeting partway through for a period of time, for example, for a lost connection, I will continue the meeting unless we're not quorate, and quorate is 2 councillors. Importantly, if a councillor drops out and has not heard all the statements made by the applicant, excuse me, or other parties for a period of time, they will not be able to determine the matter, but may continue to take part in the meeting. To help avoid this, if a councillor does drop out, we may ask the relevant party to repeat their statement. If any others drop out, the Democratic Services Officer will advise on the best course of action. So firstly, turning to the agenda, do we have any apologies for absence?
Chairman, all attendees are present.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any declarations of interest in the matters coming before this meeting?
No.
No. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. And just to confirm that this is a meeting held in public, and therefore all aspects of this meeting will be seen on the public domain, with the notable exception of the determination segment where the committee and legal advisor and democratic services officer will go into a private consultation. Do we have any matters notified in advance as urgent, please?
None, Chairman, except for the fact that the original Democratic Service Officer is ill, and therefore I am helping out the meeting today.
Yes, and we very much appreciate that, Neil. Thank you very much. So the matter before us to be considered today is a review.
Can I just stop you?
Councillor Allen.
Thank you. This is yellow sheet. So am I correct that this is not a public, a meeting on YouTube?
My understanding is that it's a part 1 item, Councillor Allen. I'm looking for clarification.
Yeah, all of the meeting will be conducted in part 1.
Yeah.
In the public room.
Yeah, I think it's just an accident of printing, as I understand it. Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear.
Okay, thank you. So the matter before us is a review of a premises licence relating to Costcutter, which is 24 High Street, Harefield. May I just check that all participants have received the addendum to the information pack, which I believe was circulated to everyone on or around the 19th of August. Does everybody have that?
Yes.
I'm seeing some nodding heads. Very good. Thank you very much. And I should also mention that there were 4 various submissions which were made on behalf of the licensee, which were provided, I believe, to the committee members on or around the 24th and the 25th of August. Can I just check that the committee members have seen those items?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, so if we then start the process, perhaps if I can turn it over to Lois King to introduce the matter. Lois.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. You have all been provided with the full report and the supporting evidence, and therefore I would like to take this opportunity to highlight the salient points. The purpose of today's hearing is to review the premises licence for Costcutter, 24 High Street, Harefield, following receipt of a review application submitted by the London Borough of Hillingdon's Trading Standards Service. The application relates to the failure to uphold the Prevention of Crime and Disorder objective of the Licensing Act 2003. During an intelligence-led inspection of Costcutter on the 27th of August 2019, the Trading Standards Service found illicit tobacco concealed in a carrier bag under the till counter. Illicit tobacco was also found concealed in the stockroom at the shop. Non-duty paid Smirnoff vodka, Glen's vodka and High Commissioner whiskey was found on the shelving display and also in the rear stockroom. The products were subsequently seized. In total, 50, that's 50, packets of illicit cigarettes and 35 bottles of non-duty paid spirits were found at the premises. Mr. Ferrer, representing the licensing authority, visited the premises on the 8th of July 2020 in order to establish the level of compliance with the Licensing Act 2003 and the premises licence conditions. Several breaches were noted, and a remedial letter was subsequently sent to the premises licence holder, Taranjit Kaur Tal, on the 9th of July 2020. In an email dated the 14th of August 2020, Mrs. Tal advised that all the matters in Mr. Ferrer's letter had been attended to and submitted photographs in support of this statement. However, further steps still need to be taken moving forward to fully satisfy licensing legislation. The premises licence holder has also submitted several letters from local businesses and a petition in support of their business. Taking into consideration paragraph 11.19 of the section 182 guidance, it is being recommended that the premises licence is suspended for a period not exceeding 3 months, and that additional conditions are imposed upon the premises licence in order that shortcomings can be rectified, and that going forward Mrs. Tal operates at the standards expected of her as the premises licence holder and designated premises supervisor. I welcome all submissions today in order for the subcommittee to make the correct decision in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. That's very helpful. I don't have any questions of clarification, but perhaps I might ask my colleagues. Councillor Allen, do you have any questions for Lois?
Yes, please. Could I ask why the time delay between the 27th of August 2019 and the 8th of July 2020? Why that delay when the items were picked up in the August, and now we're in July? Then you move forward to July, and you don't hear anything in between that. Could I ask why the delay?
Thank you, Councillor. I believe that my colleague from the applicant from Trading Standards would be better placed to answer that question. It's their review and their investigation, and I'm sure there are reasons as to this particular delay.
Thank you. I'll wait for the response. Thank you.
So may I suggest, Councillor Allen, that we pass that question across to Trading Standards when we get to that segment of the meeting. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted clarity from everybody.
Understood. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lois? No. Councillor Melville.
No, I have no questions.
Thank you very much.
Very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Can we then turn to the applicant for the review, Kim Yip from Trading Standards?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. The Trading Standards Service received a complaint from a Hillingdon resident that Costcutter in Harefield was selling illegal tobacco. To ascertain if this allegation was correct, on the 27th of August 2019, Trading Standards, with the assistance of a tobacco detection dog and dog handler, carried out an inspection of the premises. During the inspection, illicit tobacco and alcohol was found on the premises and seized, as mentioned earlier by Mrs. King. This consisted of both counterfeit tobacco and tobacco in non-plain packaging. 14 packets of cigarettes were found concealed in a plastic bag under the counter by the cash till. These were 8 packs of counterfeit Marlboro cigarettes and 11 packs of B&H and L&M Link cigarettes in non-plain packaging. The same products were also found concealed inside a Tesco bag in the back storeroom. 20 packs of counterfeit Marlboro and 16 packs of Benston Hedges and L&M cigarettes were in that bag. Also found on display for sale on the shelf display in the shop were 20 bottles of non-duty paid alcohol. They had false duty paid labels affixed to them. These consisted of 20 bottles of High Commissioner whiskey, Glen's vodka, and Smirnoff vodka. 14 of the same products were also found in the rear storeroom of the shop. Samples of the seized products were examined by the brand holders' representatives to confirm that they were illegal products. I've received a response from all the brand holders except for the Marlboro and L&M cigarettes. Marlboro, who also owned the L&M brand, have only just responded to me on the 29th of July this year to acknowledge receipt that they have received samples that we sent to them in early February. Although I don't have conclusive evidence from Marlboro yet that the products are illegal, all the Marlboro cigarettes have the same serial number on the packets, which shows that they are indeed counterfeit. Genuine tobacco has different serial numbers on each pack. The L&M cigarettes are in non-standardized packaging, so again, that is evidential. They don't need to be verified by a brand representative. It's quite evident that they are non-standardized packaging. A full breakdown of the products and quantities that we seized and are legal is shown on pages 19 and 20 of the review documents, together with some images of the products we seized. The total number of illicit tobacco was 50 packets of cigarettes and 34 bottles of alcohol. All the products are illegal and contravene the legislation listed on page 17 of the review document. There may also be safety concerns regarding these fake cigarettes. It is known that counterfeit cigarettes have a far higher level of toxic ingredients such as tar, nicotine, carbon monoxide, lead, and arsenic. So there is the safety issue as well as the fraudulent issue of selling counterfeit product. These contraventions show that the business have a complete disregard for the law and to trade legally, which is why the Trading Standards Service have requested this license review. The Trading Standards Service recommend that premises license is suspended for a period of up to 3 months to allow the owner to bring their business into compliance. We would also like the licensing subcommittee to consider adding the following conditions to the premises license. All alcohol and tobacco products will be purchased from established and bona fide VAT registered traders who provide receipts and invoices. Invoices for all stock will be kept on file for a minimum of 12 months and will be made available to the police, HMRC, and authorised officers of the local authority, including trading standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Can I kick off with asking you to pick up the question which Councillor Allen raised to Lois King, please, about the delay between the your visit and this process being initiated?
Yes, the seizure took place on 27th of August. Delays were due to resourcing capacity. We are a small team in trading standards, and we have a huge workload, which delayed matters. Also, we had issues with getting statements back from the brand holders regarding the authenticity of the products. I think it was just a busy time all round for both brand holders and ourselves. Also, the COVID situation didn't help. Marlborough only acknowledged receipt of the goods, although they were sent to them in February, and acknowledged receipt of the goods last month in July. Obviously, nobody has been in the office since the lockdown, and there's always a delay with brand holders. Some reps, Marlborough are quite slow at responding. That's what we understand. But yes, we've had a lot of trading standards matters to deal with, and it has had an impact on our response times.
Okay. Councillor Allen, do you have any follow-up questions on that?
Yes. Can I ask, when you alerted the licensing department there was an issue?
Your question is asking, did we inform the licensing department there would be a delay? No, we didn't. This review was submitted in June. We were still waiting to hear from Marlborough regarding the counterfeiting side. I mean, we were still looking at whether to prosecute the company, the business, but that would be depending on getting a witness statement from the brand representative at Marlborough. I mean, they would hold the case regarding counterfeiting. So we couldn't progress with prosecution if we were to prosecute until we received a formal statement, and there was a delay. Obviously, we couldn't hold back any longer, so which is why we submitted the review in June, early June.
So at no time between August and July did you alert the licensing team there was an issue?
No, we didn't.
Thank you.
Okay, perhaps if I might add a comment there, Mr. Chung, I think perhaps there is a learning point for the future, or if I can put it that way, coming out of this, that I think it would be advisable if certainly the licensing team were put on notice about such issues. I do understand, of course, the pandemic and so forth has probably made response times, even worse perhaps than they already were. But I think an earlier notification would be advisable.
Yes, that's noted and will be carried out.
Thank you. Can I just throw in a couple of questions of my own here before we move on? Can you give us some sense of the likely retail value of the products that you impounded?
I looked at supermarket pricing, and average price for a packet of cigarettes would be around £11.50. So if we have 50 packs, that would equate to £575 a retail value, an approximate estimate for the cigarettes that we seized.
Yeah, and the alcohol?
The alcohol varies because we had 1 litres and 70 centilitres, and obviously various different products are branded ones at different prices. The Glens, the Smirnoff. But the total value equates to roughly £595. That was based on, again, supermarket prices on average.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And if I look at the list of items that you set out, which appear on pages 19 and 20 of the pack, the quantity of items counted seems to me to be quite substantial. Is it likely, in your opinion, that these could have been acquired in a single purchasing episode, or is it more likely, in your view, that this was the result of a series of purchases over time?
It's possible both. If you look at the brands which were counterfeit, they were just Marlborough. They were Marlborough, and they were identical, the ones we found at the front of the shop under the counter and ones at the rear. So they probably were purchased at the same time. Now, the alcohol, all the ones we seized were non-duty paid. So again, it is possible that they bought them all at the same time.
Yeah.
But again, I couldn't give a conclusive answer. I mean, this is only what we found on the day. It may well be that the premises was purchasing this on a regular basis, frequent basis. I couldn't answer that. Okay.
And there's nothing in the intelligence that you received that would refine your view of that, I take it?
No. I mean, the original complaint we received was the fact that the shop was selling counterfeit tobacco. So when we go to a shop, we look at everything, not just tobacco. We look at alcohol, and we obviously found the non-duty paid alcohol too. We sometimes find fake alcohol as well. On this occasion, we only found the non-duty paid alcohol.
Thank you. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Councillor Melvin, any questions from you?
No, Chairman, I think you've sort of covered. There was one I was asking about, you know, whether it was more than one purchase, but you've already done that, so that's fine.
Apologies for pinching you. Okay, Mr. Chung, thank you. That's very helpful.
Sorry, Chairman, I would like to add, when I spoke to the brand representative Smirnoff, she did mention that the alcohol, Smirnoff alcohol, was very unusual to receive. It was a new label, it's a new labelling that they had. So it is possible that they did purchase the alcohol on different occasions.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Okay, can we now turn?
Chairman, can we just double check that Councillor Allen has no further questions? Thank you.
Oh, forgive me. I thought we'd covered that in the follow-on of Councillor Allen's questions. But Councillor Allen, do you have any other questions?
No, thank you on that.
Okay, I assumed correctly. That's good. Okay, can we now then turn to the responsible authorities? And if we could start, please, with the police. PC Butler, please.
Yes, good morning, Chairman and committee members. I'm PC Dave Butler, and I'm representing the Metropolitan Police licensing team here today. The police would like to make the following representations, and it is in support of trading standards for the review of the premises mentioned at 24 High Street, Harefield, Costcutters. The Metropolitan Police Service is supporting the review in line with the licensing objectives, and in particular to prevention of crime and disorder. Police licensing received the application for the review of the premises license, which contained trading standards grounds for review. And obviously we are aware that on the 27th of August 2019 that trading standards officers accompanied by tobacco detection dogs inspected the said premises, where a quantity of illegal tobacco was found concealed on the premises, and a quantity of illegal alcohol was found on the display shelf behind the counter and also in the storeroom behind the shop. This was seized by trading standards, we believe. It is clear the premises and licence holder have neglected to observe the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objectives. Although Hillingdon Police licensing team were not present at Costcutters on the 27th of August 2019, when the goods were found and seized, we still support trading standards in their review of the premises licence. And also we are in support of the recommendations regarding the suspension of the licence and additional conditions recommended to be added to the licence. That concludes my representation, Sir Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, PC Butler. I don't have any questions. Councillor Melvin, any questions from you? I think I see a shaking of the head. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen, any questions from you?
Just one. Can I ask if PC Butler has ever had call to go to these premises before?
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Not to my knowledge, we have no intelligence in the last 2 years regarding offences against the Licensing Act, only antisocial behaviour outside the premises, but nothing in relation to offences relating to the Licensing Act 2003.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions, Councillor Allen?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So if we can then move to the licensing authority and Mr. Ferrer, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members of the Licensing Subcommittee. My name is Daniel Ferrer and I'm the Licensing Team Manager at Hillingdon Council. I'm here representing the Licensing Authority as a responsible authority in relation to this application for a review which was submitted by the Trading Standards Service. Chairman, you will note that from my original representation dated the 10th of July, we are supporting this review, which was brought by Trading Standards under the sole licensing objective of the prevention of crime and disorder. And keeping with that licensing objectives, I should say right from the outset that there are concerns from our point of view with the visit carried out by Trading Standards on the 27th of August 2019. I won't go through the facts or the findings, we seem to have covered them a lot, just to say that we are concerned that this licensed premises of ours and off license had a quantity of illegal tobacco and alcohol, which was found and in parts with the tobacco concealed and even hidden, which is a great concern for us. And clearly on the 27th of August, as PC Butler has stated, clearly the crime and disorder prevention of that licensing objective was not promoted and in fact neglected. And furthermore, in terms of the report put into Trading Standards, we can see that they have scheduled a number of pieces of legislation. And my understanding is that each breaches of those pieces of legislation amount to offences and therefore crimes. And we support this review so we can prevent further crimes and issues in reoccurring in the future. I think at this point it's worth pointing out, and Trading Standards have pointed this out, and also Mrs. King has in the report, that Section 182 guidance, specifically at 11.27 states, there is a certain criminal activity that may arise in connection with licensed premises, which should be treated particularly seriously. These are the use of licensed premises for the sale of storage of tobacco and alcohol. Chairman, moving on, it was also stated by Mrs. King that as a result of these concerns, on the 8th of July, I carried out a licensing inspection at 12:10 in the afternoon. I met with a Mr. Pal Singh Tal, who stated that he was the brother-in-law of the DPS and license holder. A number of issues were detected, some of them quite basic. For example, the premises license not being produced, the license summary and the Section 57 notice are not displayed in a prominent position. And also there was inconsistency with age verification signage. There was a couple of more issues that we had concern with, and that was Mr. Tao was unfamiliar with the workings of the CCTV, and that 2 cameras were not working, and also that there was no incident log. Now, I should stress at this point in time, currently there are no specific conditions attached to the premises license that deal with the issue of CCTV and incident book and an incident books, but it's something that we feel that a license holder, indeed especially one which holds operates as an off license, should have put in practice and to fully promote the licensing objectives. My visit was followed up by a letter which you have in the report at page 41, appendix 6, which basically details my findings. And this was sent to the license holder, DPS Taranjit Tao, and this was sent to her home address, and also a copy sent to the premises. As has been mentioned in the addendum, a response was received on the 14th of August 2020, and we can read that in full, but essentially it said, we received your letter and we have rectified all the issues. And of course, we welcome cooperation and any improvements made by license holders. The only point I would raise, which we've picked up on, is that if we look at the incident log photograph, which was sent with the email dated the 14th of August, we see that it's more suited to a, I would say, accident injury report. And we see that in references. For example, it says, describe any illness or injury, and references to A&E and hospital. So what we would say is, thank you to the license holder in taking that action, but we would suggest that an incident log records other incidences, such as any crimes reported at the premises, any complaints, any faults in CCTV, any refuse sales, and any visits by the police or any authorised officer. That neatly sort of brings me into the conditions that we've proposed. They're on the second page of my representation, but also in appendix 7 of the bundle. We say that these 4 proposed conditions go some way in promoting the licensing objectives and having safeguards and provide due diligence for the operators. And in general, we feel that these conditions are appropriate, reasonable, and proportionate in this case. Chairman, I think those are my submissions in relation to this review application. I'll be happy to answer any queries or questions that you or other members of the licensing subcommittee may have for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrer. That's a very comprehensive summary, if I may say so. I don't have any questions. Councillor Melvin, anything from you? No. I think, is that right?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, any questions from you?
No, my questions were answered through the rest.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so now, please, if we may turn to the licensee. So this is Mrs. Towell, and I think also Mrs. Towell's representative, Mr. Panchal. I imagine, Mr. Panchal, you're probably going to start us off.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think, Chairman, I'm going to be starting off. Mrs. Stahl's there to, if there is any questions the councillors want to ask. Her English is not very good, so I've asked her son to be there. So it will be easily translated, and as it is a family-run business, which I'll mention in my... So I can take over if, with your permission, Chairman.
Please go ahead, Mr. Panchal.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I just want to briefly bring to your attention that these premises were acquired in 2012-13, and they have been there since then, the premises, and they have made a very good rapport with the local community. You must have seen the letters come through the post and appendum, and I've seen that. So, Chairman, they have been very good at the community there. And for now, during that period in August 2019, when this incident occurred, this is a family-run business. Can I also come in and tell everybody, make sure that the family is part of it? There are other 4 employees employed at the premises, apart from the 3 family members who help out in the business. Mrs. Stahl, her husband, her brother-in-law, and sometimes the son helps here and there in getting things correctly. They thought that they had done a better business here, so they wanted to expand themselves. And in July 2019, they managed to get 2 more businesses in Wales. And at that particular instance, they had an employee at these premises at Costcutter called Roshan, from the information that I have acquired from the clients. And all the supplies at Costcutter He's ordered the cigarettes, the alcohol, and all the groceries are ordered from Costcutter, but they are part of the Costcutter franchisee. So all the orders come from there, apart from few things that they buy from the cash and carry, registered AWRS cash and carry. And I think from what I gather from the client, from my client, that this incident, that we are looking at on the August incident, and you could see that it was a one-off purchase from the representations by the the trading standards in that. So here and there, Mr. Roshan had made a business in a business, and was carrying on doing this without the knowledge of Mr. Tal and them. Now we could have an argument. We could carry on and say, why was you not dealing with this, and why did you not look at where the products were already displayed at the premises? A lot of questions were asked to the incidents, but they were all very busy dealing with the other two shops that they were buying in Wales. And suddenly, when this incident happened, the whole attention came back to this shop at Costcutter to say, hey, what's going wrong here? We've not managed to bring ourselves back into it. So immediately, you heard from the licensing officer Daniel's visit. You heard from all of the parts that matter was immediately rectified and made sure this incident doesn't take place again. Mr. Roshan was sacked from the premises. He is no longer working there. That is information that I've got. So, Chairman, everything is now rectified. Everything is done. The premises are back to normal from where it was from since they took over in 2013. Sorry, and we, on discussion with the client, there was a breach during that period, whether the license holder automatically becomes part of the breach, whether the staff carries out or anything according to the legislation. And we are, from my point of view, the council is again very helpful to the premises since they've been so cooperative with the responsible authorities and that their recommendation is for a suspension of the period. So, Chairman, we're happy to undergo a suspension for a recommendation of a suspension by the trading standards and the police and the license officers. All the matters like login book, incident book, they have approached us, the license holders, to make sure things are in place, the trainings and everything are in place. They were there in place from 2012 anyway, but they're trying to make it even more better, upgraded and everything. As you heard from the license officer, the conditions are not there on the premises license regarding CCTV and everything. So if you look at your bundle appendix 7, page 43, there are a few conditions laid out, proposed conditions. And Chairman, we're quite happy to endorse those conditions into the license and make sure those are not breached. And I'm sure you heard from Daniel, the license officer whose visit was there, that and then immediately he was contacted and matters are taking place, and there is a progress at the premises. And I'm sure Daniel will confirm that there is a huge progress, and I can see that there is a progress also of our involvement at the premises. So, Chairman, all we recommend at the moment is I'm quite happy, and if the suspension period is reduced from 3 months to 1 month, but the priority is on the committee, and we are happy to have all the proposed conditions mentioned by the license officers. The license holder is very sorry for what has happened at the premises, and promises that he does not want to come back again into a hearing of this kind again, and to make sure that such thing does not happen again into the area. They are very well known in at the community there. Mr. Tal is also very well known in his own community, so he's felt a bit under the log. Let's put it like that. So, Chairman, that's our recommendation, and we are quite happy for the suspension period if it is reduced or accepted and the proposed conditions laid out. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take on.
Thank you, Mr. Pantel. Can I initially seek clarification of one point?
Yep.
You described the activity of Mr. Roshan, I think, as a business within a business. Am I right? That's what you said. So do I take it from that your suggestion is that what was going on here was that Mr. Roshan was buying stock and selling it and taking the proceeds personally from the sale of this stock? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what from the knowledge I get from the clients or the license holder, that is exactly what transpired at the premises, because he found the situation when the Tal family were quite busy on the other side of the shoe shops, and left the responsibility on Roshan and the other clients to say, can you order all the stuff from Costcutters as normal, just ring them and put this order in and the delivery will come in. And whilst they were very busy negotiating with the other two shops, he managed to get into this. And as soon as the trading standards came in, the matter was thrown in. I still remember the letters was thrown in, and they immediately visited our office and said, we've been done with this. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, this is what has happened at the shop. So that is what the information I get from the license holder.
Yeah.
But if there is anything there, I'm sure you could question them there.
Yeah. I mean, what I find surprising about that, I presume this business has a till, and that normally all takings would be reflected through the till. And I would have thought as well that if a transaction was taking place in the shop and takings were not being put through the till, given that there's a CCTV system operating in the shop, that I can understand that Mrs. Tal and her family could not be present all the time, but surely they do take a look at CCTV records, and they might have spotted this. Perhaps Mrs. Tal or her son would care to comment on that.
Yeah, I'm sure they could comment on this, but many a times I've seen it does happen from my point of view and dealing with so many traders in the area. But technology is getting better and better, and lesser and lesser things are now happening the way we look at it and the way you were asking. But
okay. Well, perhaps we might ask Mrs. Tal or her son
sure.
To comment on this, please.
Hello there. My name is Daumi. I am the son of Taranjit Tal. I'll be speaking on behalf because of the lack of English. Regarding the CCTV and the checkings of CCTV, it will be in the hands of obviously our family to check them. We do check our CCTV when need be, and most of the time weekly. However, we missed this completely, and we were quite shocked when this happened.
Yes. So can I understand this? The person who you say committed these offences. How long was he employed by your family? When did he join, and when did you dismiss him?
He had joined, I think, roughly 18 months before, hopefully, something like that. Around 17 to 18 months before.
So when did you dismiss him? Can I be clear about that?
When we started to check, when we did our own investigation into finding out what and where this stock was coming from, we found out that since we had left him in charge, he was in charge of getting all the stock in. We were, because we were occupied, we were busy, that it could be no one else but him who could get the stock through the doors, and it could be no one else but him who could sell it. on the shelves or anywhere in the shop, because he was technically in charge of getting stock in. So he managed all that himself.
Okay, but I'm still not clear as to, you know, what I'm looking for is an approximate date, or perhaps a precise date as to when it was that you dismissed him.
Roughly, I think it was about a week after, once we found out. As soon as we found out, because it took us at least a week or two to find out, we dismissed him pretty much immediately.
But you don't know which month that was, even?
It was in the start of September, I believe.
September 2019. 2019. Okay. And so, if I understand you correctly, he was in your employment for a period of 18 months.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And are you aware to what extent this activity that you say he was responsible for was going on? Is there any evidence to suggest how many occasions that he bought stock like this?
Well, we wouldn't know, because once we had given him the charge, he could have bought stock many times. He could have bought the stock once. We wouldn't know that, because it was all up to him and how he chose to get stock through the doors. Whereas from Costcutter, stock would come in every single 2 or 3 days. So there's a set limit. So Mondays and Fridays and Wednesdays we get deliveries. Sorry, Saturdays, not Fridays. And by chance, he could bring it in any during those times when he was maybe getting stuff from the cash and carries or something like that. He could have got it from a wholesaler. We don't know, because we were, like we said, we were busy. But all our stock used to, when we were running it ourselves, when we still are running it ourselves, but during this period of time when this took place, it was all up to him where he got the stock from, how much stock he got, and technically where he got it from.
Okay, so if we look at the, shall we call it the legitimate stock,
Yes.
for alcohol and tobacco in the business,
Yes.
Does that all come from Costcutter?
Yep, a large amount of it comes from Costcutter and from established cash and carries such as the Metro and Bestway.
Okay, and who amongst your family is responsible for the ordering of that stock, or is that delegated to your employees?
Most of the times, but some of the times, some of the deliveries, when let's say we are not at the store, they will be able to. They have the system, the computer in front of them to order from Costcutters, and they are able to order themselves, the staff. And when we had a higher presence at the store before all this situation took place, and before we got busy with our other stores and the purchasing and running of them, yeah, we were ordering ourselves from Costcutter as well.
Okay, I mean, if I may say so, it seems to me an extraordinary level of trust that you're placing in employees to have them order your stock. I mean, if an employee gets that wrong, it can have serious consequences for the business, can't it? I mean,
of course. Well, sorry to cut you off, sir.
Yeah.
Apologies. We give training on how we learnt from the systems. So the training that we got from the Costcutter, when they came in and downloaded the system onto our computers, we passed that training on to the staff. So they've been trained for at least 3 to 6 months before we hand over any type of actual role to them. And once they've been trained up, they know how to use the systems. They know how to count the stock. They know how to get product in and out of the store. Where to bin products that are not that you can't sell, that are expired or short date. They are all trained up, so that we can run our other stores at the same time. So it's like, as in saying, we train them up to the point where they can take slight charge of the store and they can be trusted. And yeah,
I understand. Thank you. If I look at your license, the business is entitled to be open to sell alcohol for approximately 102 hours a week.
Yes.
So it's a very substantial time commitment. how is that time commitment dealt with amongst you and your family and your employees? I mean, your mother, for example, is the licensee. How many hours roughly does she spend actually at the premises working in the shop?
Well, we would spend anything from on a weekly basis from 30 to 40 hours at least, depending on how much time is needed at the store, and at running other stores as well at the same time. Yeah.
So at 30 or 40 hours, would that be a time commitment from your mother, or would that be from other members of the family?
It would be from my mother, yeah.
From your mother?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And the remainder, the other 70 or so hours,
yeah.
Would that generally be provided by employees, or would it be other members of the...
Yeah. So as you've heard of my mother's brother-in-law, Mr. Parsington, he is a family member. Staff/family. So staff. He spends quite a lot of those hours at the store as well. So 20 hours on top of that. That's 60. And then since I've also taken some hours myself, I would add at least 10, maybe 5 hours onto that. And then there's staff as well, of course.
I understand. Thank you. Okay, let me allow my colleagues to have a ask you questions. Councillor Melvin, any questions for the line?
I think, Chairman, I think you've covered an awful lot. I was a little bit concerned though, because apart from the drink and the cigarette problem, which is obviously a large problem, there was also an issue with the Challenge 21 signage. The CCTV wasn't working properly. The gentleman who was running didn't know how to use it. And these are issues that I was concerned about as well, because I think that, you know, if anybody's going to run the store, manage it, they should be fully trained in everything, in every access, every system. And obviously he wasn't, and the premises license wasn't there for people to see or anything. And I'm a bit concerned that there was an issue there with other things going wrong, as well as this really bad problem of the that we're dealing with today. So I just wanted to know whether, from what I can see, hopefully you've set all that right. And has anybody else been trained, you know, so that they can do, if you're not there, that they can do what is necessary?
Of course. Sorry to interrupt. Mr. Parsington has been fully trained now into the camera systems. Me, my mother, my father, most of the staff members now, the 2 other staff members have been trained in using the CCTV system. We have fixed the 2 cameras that were not working to the standard. So all 16 cameras are now working and operating in the store. And all the other points that were made in, just a second please, in the letter that we received from Mr. Farah, the premises license has been moved to a prominent position where it can be seen by all customers and all staff members and anyone from the HMRC trading standards. Anyone who comes in the store, it can be fully produced at any time, whether it be 7 or 11 at night, anytime. And the age verification policy has been more dealt with. It's been put up, there's been more signs. So it's a Challenge 25 policy, as everyone knows, with alcohol. I have displayed more signs, more prominent places, in more prominent places, sorry. And like Mr. Farah called out that the incident, we didn't have an incident logbook at the time at the store. I have proceeded to make an incident logbook. We have been told that it's not the best, which I will obviously from today forward, look on to improve immediately, and will add all the points that were called out, such as what crime and other things that were called out by Mr. Farah, to add to the logbook, and so that it can be better written if there is an incident at the store.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I had read your letter, but I just wanted you to confirm that everything had been done accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Melvin. Councillor Allen, any questions from you, please?
Oh, yes, I have got lots of questions.
Go for it.
Right, where do I start? You tell us that your mother is the licence holder. Can I ask what training your mother had? Bearing in mind we're sitting here today and you're acting as her advocate, and she is the licence holder, and she must have did the training and the exam. Could I ask when she did it and how competent she is in dealing with that licence?
Of course.
That's my first question.
Yeah. So my mother during the BII training, where in multiple languages you could go ahead and give the course to gain the premises license and to get a personal license. She did her training during those times, and so she has given full training. She has had full training, and she knows how to take care of those issues.
With all this training in mind,
yes.
Can you tell me how she decided to take an 18-month break from running this shop that she's got a license on and handed it over to a gentleman called Roshan?
Yeah.
Can you ask me how she took her responsibility?
Sorry, yeah, my apologies. I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding. It wasn't an 18-month break. It was a.
You said it. Can I stop you? You told us that he'd been employed for 18 months, and you literally let him do what he was doing without no checks and balances, no overseeing of what he was doing.
Well, no, because he had to be trained up first of all in the 18 months. So he was trained up to the standard where we would have expected him to know everything in the store, such as ordering and getting stock in and making sure all those issues were dealt with. And
can I stop you?
Of course.
Your mother, as the license holder, was responsible for everything that came into your store and everything that was sold. She couldn't delegate that to someone else to say, oh, well, they're dealing with that while I'm going off to Wales. She had overall responsibility. So can you tell me why she chose to walk away from that business and not keep her eye on what was going on?
Well, we can only apologize for this action due to the fact we became busy. My mother became busy in other stores.
How much confidence can we have that you will run this shop properly when you've got other shops in Wales, and who are the license holders for those?
Yeah.
Is it your mother the same? And that really worries me.
That for those stores is my father. My father's usually in Wales now. He's running that store himself.
So it will be your mother who will be running this.
And another point I would like to say then is since this incident, we have been spending a lot more time at the store, which we should have spent before, which is why the mistake took place. And since then, we've made sure everything is completely compliant, trying our utmost best to make sure nothing of this kind can ever happen again in any of our stores in the future.
But you're telling us that Mr. Roshan ran this store and had carte blanche to bring in whiskey, cigarettes, and everything else, and run it as a company within a company. Did there no time? I mean, I worked in your business, so I know how it operates. You get your till receipts, you work out what's coming in, what's going out, what's profitable, what's not. Did nobody at any time say to themselves, hold up, we're not selling, we don't seem to be selling any vodka or whiskey or a certain brand of cigarettes. Aren't customers coming in and buying them anymore? Should I be looking on the shelf to see what stock I've got? It just doesn't seem to add up. So I'd like you to explain to me who oversaw the store while you were all gallivanting in Wales or wherever. Who looked after the stock? Who checked what was coming in the store, what was going out the store? Because I do not believe, and I don't think you're going to convince me, that at some point in those 18 months Mr. Roshan was working there, that someone didn't say, hold up, why are we not purchasing a certain brand of vodka? Do the local community not like that vodka? In which case, let's take it off our list. Why is it still on our shelf? Somebody must have been watching over this. I do not believe, for the evidence you're telling me, that it can all settle at one man's doorstep who has left.
Well,
I hope you give the police the details of him.
Of course. Well, he was removed because as soon as we found out that something like this was taking place, we had to remove him. And during the time where he was technically in charge of buying stock in, it was him in charge.
But he shouldn't. But do you get where I'm coming from? He should. If your mother is the license holder, then she cannot put someone else in charge. You know, she can say you can look after that counter, that till, but she has overall responsibility. She can't delegate that the sign off to someone else. It becomes her responsibility. And you would have had that training to know that.
Of course. Of course. Well, in this case, we had left more confidence in our staff member, which shouldn't have been placed in the staff member, and it is a huge mistake on our part.
Councillor Allen, I think your point is very well made and taken.
Thank you.
Can we move on to your next question?
I think I've said as much as and I've heard as much as I need. Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Okay. Well, Kerry, go ahead.
Oh, grateful. The question I would like to establish is where is the evidence that a Mr. Roshan was recruited at Costcutter?
Sorry, Kerry. What evidence are you asking us to provide?
If he's recruited, he should have an employment contract. There should be some audit trail of his existence there.
Yeah, he was paid by a pay slip or something, and if required, his pay slips or past pay slips or anything from the accountant could be produced if the council requires it.
There was. Well, the cutoff was the 21st of August, where any information that the premises license holder wanted to rely on should have been submitted. When Mr. Roshan, was it explained to the trading standards officer or the licensing officer or the police that it was a Mr. Roshan that was accountable for the problem? Or are we just hearing it today?
Yeah, since this incident happened, from my point of view and looking at all the documents after the incident on August, and you heard from the trading standard also that they haven't come back. The only people who visited the shop was the licensing officer Daniel Farr, and immediately matters were started to rectify by the client. Whatever that happened, or the books were missed in, or anything were missing, were immediately there was a full cooperation. You could hear from Daniel Farr's presentation by the shopkeeper to make sure, yes, we made a mistake, we've had this problem, let's rectify it. There was no visit by the trading standards, or there was no visit there was no PACE interview called up to the clients. In normal circumstances, we come across that there is a PACE interview immediately called up when in such incidents. So Mrs. Stahl was never called up on a PACE interview. we had this question put up by Councillor Ellen when we started this, that why was this no investigation was carried out? Why did it take a year or so? So in my point of view, from my experience, 20 years in this licensing, we didn't see any police interview carried out, or any interview of the incident, or any information, further information by the trading standards or anybody to see why this incident took place. Instead, the clients were very much putting themselves forward to say, hey, we made a mistake, we found out something that's happened here, let's rectify it. And it was immediately rectified.
Mr.
Yeah.
Rashawn, this information that there was a member of staff that was responsible for the ordering, that's been presented today at this public hearing, isn't it? Or was it mentioned at any time prior?
Well, nobody asked it prior, so today was the hearing day where my client is presenting himself and saying that this is why it had happened, and we are sorry for what it had happened. They understand that it is their responsibility. We've explained to the client that it's the responsibility of the license holder, so they now understand that this is a total responsibility of the DPS and the license holder on a day-to-day running of the premises, which they understand. And everybody understands, and when we go around to the premises, we always make sure we make them understand. It does not matter whether your staff does a mistake; the responsibility falls on the license holder and the DPS.
No, well,
Kerry, I think Kerry, again, I think your point is well made.
Yeah.
I would like to move on, if we may.
Yeah.
Councillor Allen, can I take what we're about to move into the discussion phase, and so you'll have absolute opportunity to raise.
I would just like to correct something that Mr. Panchel is talking about. When I asked the question about the time delay, that was a mere time delay. Mr. Panchel knows the rules, and I do not want him to be under any illusion that he's got any wriggle room on this.
No, I don't.
Not the council's responsibility. It is the holder of the license. So that is a no-no as far as I'm concerned.
Your point is made, Councillor Allen.
Thank you.
Okay, let us now move into the discussion.
Chairman, before you go ahead, I do come to these hearings regularly. What my explanation is, what Kerry's point of view, I agree with what Kerry is saying. I respect Kerry's point of view.
Can I stop you there? I think I think the points have been adequately made. There is no point in embellishing them any further. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
I think that's absolutely clear. Let's please move into the discussion phase. And I'd like to kick this off. And I think my concern here, the thing I would like some more understanding about, really follows on for the theme of what Councillor Allen has been saying. I think it is, I think there is a serious concern here about the way in which this business has been managed. Okay. And as I understand it, and I think, Mr. Towell, this is a question for you. As I understand it, the business appears to be owned by a company called Harefield Food and Wine Limited. And I believe that your mother, Mrs. Towell, owns all the shares and is the sole director currently. Is that correct?
The limited company holder, yeah. She owns the company.
Okay, but this is a family business.
Yeah.
What I would like to understand, up until, as I understand it from looking at the house records, up until February 2019, a gentleman called Mr. Jasbir Singh Tal, who I guess might be your father, I'm not sure, was the director of the company. And yet in February 2019, he was replaced by Mrs. Tal. Can you explain the nature of that change? Why that change happened?
Well, it was a change. It was a change because my father was leaving to go run the businesses in Cardiff. Well, in Wales, sorry, not Cardiff. And we needed someone that could be here, well, and spend more time here. And that change was to be my mother. But we were getting very, very busy. so we were spending less time, and during that time, still we had put Mr. Roshan in charge of the store. And the reason why that change took place was only just so that it would be easier, because my mother would be more local and easier to run the store.
Okay. Now, I appreciate that your mother has undergone training in licensing and that she is the personal license holder. Can I ask, does anybody else in the family hold a personal license?
Yes, me. Sorry, not me. Sorry, my father, my mother, and yeah, and Mr. Palsington.
So they have personal licenses.
Yes.
And
one of our staff members as well.
Okay.
Sorry.
But I mean, for example, you said that you are one of the people who spend time. Yes, that's correct. Is it you?
So recently after I found out that this has taken place,
yes,
I've taken more charge. I've been spending more time at the store to rectify all these issues. So yeah. I've in the email I've sent you, I've detailed how I've fixed these issues and how I'm trying to move forward and making sure that everything is to the standards that it needs to be.
Yeah. Okay, so if for example I were to ask you, what are the 4 licensing objectives under the 2003 Licensing Act, would you be able to tell me what those are?
Well, I haven't partaken in a personal test, and I haven't been trained as to that far.
Yeah.
However, it's something that I would hope to do in the near future.
But if as I understand it, your father is spending the majority of his time in Wales with the businesses that you have there, your mother, as I understand it, from what you say, is spending 30 or so hours a week there, although I have to tell you that from discreet inquiries I've made of local business people, nobody seems to know your mother locally. Yeah, so I'm surprised and disappointed by that inconsistency, if I can put it that way. So I think there is, for me, there is a concern as to whether we have enough people who really understand the responsibilities and the implications of the Licensing Act running the business. So that is concern number 1. Concern number 2 is very much along the lines of what Councillor Allen was saying earlier. To me, I find it very... I can understand that you might spend time training an employee, yeah, but even with a trained employee, it's extraordinary to me that there should be no checks and controls and balances over the behavior of that employee if you're entrusting him to take a big responsibility. It seems to me that if actually you trained him and then set him loose, which seems to be the suggestion, it was inevitable that something was going to go wrong, wasn't it?
Well, we did have our small checks in place, making sure we came in and looked at stock occasionally to make sure everything was running perfectly and to the standards. However, we never caught him in such a act or with this type of stock in the store.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it does seem to me that there is a need for, the assertion of a much stronger level of control, both in terms of making sure that the business complies with the Licensing Act, and also making sure that basic business controls are operating properly.
So my apologies. So going forward, we are now, like I said, we're spending a lot more time at the store. The not just me or my mother, all of us in a way. And going forward, I'm also going to get a personal license, try and go forward, learn all these all these licensing acts. I need to know all this myself so that I can be trained in them, and I can hopefully take over one day and make sure all these are met, and there are none of these mistakes taking place ever again.
Okay, let me pass this over now. Councillor Melvin, any questions or any points in discussion you would like to raise?
No, no more. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Melvin. Councillor Allen, I'm sure you've got plenty of things to contribute to this.
Yes, as I say, that's why I sit on this committee. I would like to be thorough.
Sure.
We're told by Mr. Towell that his father, mother, and another member of staff are all holders of a personal licence. Can I ask, did they ever check whether Mr. Roshan or Rochelle or whatever his name, was he ever checked to see if he had any personal licence or training? Because I find it very odd that someone would put someone in charge who hadn't had that training. And a question for Mr. Panchal, which relates to this store. Could Mr. Panchal tell me whether Mr. or Mrs. Towell ever came to him and said, look, we're going to be starting a business elsewhere and we're going to be spending, would it be right for us to delegate all the shops buying, selling and running to someone who hadn't got a license, who doesn't appear to have had any training? Where would that leave us on the license front? So perhaps Mr. Patel can answer that question.
Yeah, it's Mr. Panchal, Councillor Allen.
Panchal, I miss the N now. I apologise.
Yeah, we've been seeing each other quite a lot. Councillor Allen, if the clients would have come to us quite earlier, or when they were negotiating the Wales business and came to us, our advice to them would be definitely to have the person checked onto a personal license, obtain a personal license, or if a Section 57 notice was to be put up, to say that, well, you are nominating somebody who has to be qualified and who should know the business, and they should be able to do that. But we were not approached. But we would have gone on to that side to make sure all licensing matters were in place before you left anybody in charge. And that person in charge must be very qualified.
So, Mr. Panchal, when you give all these shops, manager owners training, do you have a part of that training on what they should not be doing, like handing over a store to someone who's had no training to run? Do you tell them what their legal duty is?
Ma'am, it is our legal duty to tell them exactly how the store should be running legally. It is our duty to tell them that what goods or where the goods should be bought. Similarly to whatever you see what the licensing officers are dealing with, that's what we deal with at the same time with all our customers, and we'll tell them what is right and what is wrong. We also teach them what the trading laws are, and we also try and tell them to make sure work along with the responsible authorities if there are problems. And we also have seminars we arrange whereby we invite our responsible authorities and all the license officers gather together. So we spend that money doing that for all our customers.
Right. So it stands to reason they would have knowledge of what they shouldn't be doing when they did it.
Yeah. So when they did it, we only come to aware on such incidents when people have been found doing things, and then they come and approach us and said, "Oh, we've done this, and we've now into this kind of a problem."
No,
and then we look into that problem.
Mr. Panchal, what I'm saying is, a person can't plead ignorance if they've had that training to start with, and then say, "Oh, well, we made a mistake." A mistake is an error of judgment. This is not. This is a legal requirement that they have that training. And so therefore they've had the training and they've ignored it.
Yeah, they must have had a training before, not from us. They must have had a training.
I apologise. I thought the training came from you. So perhaps...
No, the training didn't come from us.
perhaps that's something else that needs looking at then. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Anything else, Councillor Allen?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, let me just throw it open. If anybody else would like to contribute anything in the discussion phase, can they indicate to me now?
Yes, Chairman.
King, yes, King, yeah.
Yes. I'd like to ask a question regarding the training that Mr. Roshan received. Was any of his training documented to say that he had received the training?
I think that's a question for you, Mr. Towell.
Yeah, sorry. Well, we gave training underneath our own belt, and the plan of action was to get him to go and get a personal license and to do the test and to learn everything more moving forward. However, before to get to that stage, before we got to that, we found out that this is what he's doing from the trading standards.
So you were only became so there was nothing to evidence that he had received any training. There was no training manual that you documented to say yes, Mr. Roshan has received formal training, and we are happy that he is knowledgeable with the shop procedures to allow him to run the shop.
Not to my knowledge, no.
There's normally when an employee starts employment, then they are given some kind of training, and they are, you accept that, you agree to that. What didn't happen on this occasion with Mr. Roshan. Our second question is, how many people work in the shop during that period, the 18 months?
Well, most of the hours would have been done by, well, I mean, Mr. Roshan was technically running the store, and then there was other staff members with him.
Which other staff members?
There's four other staff members.
Right. And do they work behind the counter, behind the till?
Most of them, no, don't. Most of them are on the floor.
What about when the shop's busy? Was your mother working behind the counter as well?
Yeah, when need be, we will be working there. Me.
See, so yourself was working there?
Well, not during the time that this happened, no.
So who else would have been working behind the counter during that period?
My mum, my father, when he was not here, when he was not here, he was obviously in Cardiff, and Mr. Pal Singh Tal, and others, one more employee. Emma Scrub.
The reason why I ask is because the counterfeit cigarettes were found in a bag under the counter right by the till. So I would have expected someone, if you're saying, I would have expected someone else working in the shop, your family would have noticed that there's some counterfeit tobacco underneath the counter. So it should have been highlighted to you long before trading standards carried out our visit at the end of August. So you should have been aware that something was wrong long before we arrived.
Well, I wasn't there, so I'm not sure why they hadn't continued and made all these checks on that day or even before then, since it was happening from before, obviously. And I myself am stuck as to why they did not realize.
Okay. Second question was just a clarification from what Mr. Panchal said about it was a one-off purchase. There's nothing to evidence that in our seizure to suggest that it was a one-off purchase. And my further question is the signatures that you received from the community, when you asked them to sign that form, what did you tell them was the reason for the signatures?
They were shown the documents as to what had happened. We had told them what had happened, what had taken place at the store, and some of them were completely shocked as how it could happen at our store because they've known us for years, the local community, and they know that such an act by us is just, it's bewildering, because they know that we wouldn't do something like that. And so the people that signed, and which was most the customers that came in, they all knew as why and what they were signing.
So what did you say that the license review was regarding counterfeit tobacco sold in your shop?
Yeah, we said that trading standards had come in last year or at the end of August, and they had caught this type of stock, the stock that has been highlighted, and when they asked how that possible, we said that during this time we weren't present, and we were less present at the store, and it was more easier for staff to take an act like this, and yeah, and they've
so you told your customers that you're blaming Mr. Roshan. That's why this incident happened.
But we're saying that it was his hand, it was his job, it was him who brought this in and did this act.
So do you feel that if you didn't put the blame on someone else, they would have signed the signatures if they all were aware that it was your shop who had been selling counterfeit
the local
tobacco?
community knows it's our shop, and they know that they've known that for years, that it's a family-run business. They know who we are, and that's why they signed, I guess, and they knew they've been told the reasons why and what they are signing.
So the reasons were that someone else in your shop, who you sacked now, had caused the fake tobacco to be sold. You didn't tell them it was just yourself who was selling the tobacco.
Sorry?
I mean, did you tell your customers that it was someone else who caused this issue for your license to be reviewed? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, as he was the one who got this stock in.
But my question to you is that if you hadn't mentioned that it was someone else to blame, you just told your customers, we are having our license reviewed because we have been found to be selling fake tobacco, do you believe your customers would have signed that form, knowing that you were alleged to have sold?
I wouldn't be able to answer for all the customers.
Mr. Chair, I think this is. I think we've got your point. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. There's just one further question I would like to ask.
It's speculation.
Yeah,
I can't answer for the customers.
Sorry, let's leave that point there. You said you have one more point. Or are you finished? Mr.
No further.
Okay.
No further points to add.
Mr. Pereira, you're indicating.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a couple of quick questions for Mr. Tao, because I have, from the conversations that we're having, I've got some concerns about the role of the DPS and general accountability at the premises, which have come to light. And so I would like to ask these two quick questions. When did your mum first get her personal licence? We know it's from Hounslow. I'd just like to know the date, because that will determine when the training happened. And in addition to that, during this period of time, Mr. Tao, was there any thought or decision to be made to vary the designated premises supervisor so someone else, as a personal licence holder, could take control? Because it sounded like you were very busy at that period of time. So those are my two quick questions.
Yeah, well, not me, but I think my father, my mother, and people working at the store had a small discussion.
Yes.
At the time to make another DPS to make them in charge. Yes. And so that they would be responsible. There was this question raised between them, and I guess it wasn't taken. It did not happen until it didn't happen, I guess. And during the time that my mom was busy, Mr. Roshan was technically in charge, and this is why it happened. Going forward, though, I'm going to try and take this training and try and take over completely and make sure that everything is to standards myself. so nothing like this can take place ever again. And even since then, I've been putting in a lot more presence at the store to prevent any of this type of incident happening ever again.
But Mr. Tao, the other Mr. Tao who I met on my inspection, he has a personal license, is that right?
Yes.
And just a quick question about your mum getting the personal license from Hounslow. Do you know the issue date? Because that would determine when new training would happen, or she converted her old magistrate license. So do you know when she? It's just a question. Or Mr. Panchal, no, I don't.
Yeah. I can answer that. She obtained her license in 2012, so it wasn't a grandparent right.
That's all I wanted to clarify. And so she had training under the BII, under the new system.
Yeah, that's right. And it wasn't through us, so we know that.
Sure. That's all I had to ask, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrer. Councillor Melvin, you indicated.
No, that's fine, because the question's been answered. I was just going to ask Mr. Towell, you know, what they'd actually learnt from the problems that they've had, and how they were going to move forward and change, obviously, the issues they've had, because the practices would appear to need some change. And I would like him to just give me some idea on how they intend to move forward.
Of course.
And also what they've learned from it.
I can come into that, because that will help you a lot. There was a constant correspondence between Daniel Farrar and Mr. Tal of changes that had happened immediately from August 29th onwards, which you have seen the emails, where new posters were laid in, incident books were brought in, matters were rectified. All those matters are now in straight correspondence with the license officer in making sure things are happening. There was a meeting with us, our company, which was, we are a training firm, and we deal with stuff, and we can speak the language they speak, and we've started upgrading, the training standard is just put in his conversation regarding the training manual. There will be a training manual available straight away, because we produce the training manual, so that will be there. So we are also making sure everything is upgraded at the premises, and they are making all the efforts. So prior to coming to this hearing, the efforts are already in place, or are already taking place, let's put it like that. So it's not just left over, and we're not coming to this meeting to say, well, we're going to do it after this hearing. It's not that. It's already happening. So everything is happening in promoting, and the clients are not saying that no, the mistake hasn't been happened. The mistake has happened. They raised their hands up and said, yes, we made a mistake. We are rectifying that mistake, and we are going to make sure this mistake doesn't happen again. And we're going to make sure we don't want to come in front of the committee again. We don't want to come to this question again. Especially Councillor Allen, we want to come back here and tell her, or in future, to say, look, we're up to date. We are following the licensing policy of the Hillingdon Borough. We are making sure we have to the community, and we are happy to get our license suspended for a little while so that we can go back, sit on the board, and whatever is left over, we will rectify. And we are happy
to Mr. Panchal. That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
And there are conditions that are laid out. So we are happy to also put those conditions, because there are no conditions on the license presently. So it will be good enough to have those conditions also put up onto the license. Yes. And we have to explain how those conditions are going to work with the client. So we are quite good with that competency that we expect.
Well, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just make one point on this, though? You characterize this as a mistake.
I know.
In my eyes, this is not a mistake. This is a lapse. Okay.
I totally agree with you, Councillor. When I say mistake, and I say you next time, I'll make sure the word lapse is put in. It's a lapse. Definitely, it's a lapse.
Please, let's be clear about this.
Yeah.
This is not just semantics. There is a very clear distinction here, in that the DPS is responsible for what is going on at the premises. And I think from what we've heard, the DPS has not been exercising adequate control here. And that is why I say this is very different. This is not a one-off mistake. numerous things could have happened in this time, but there has been an absence of good control consistent with the requirements of the Licensing Act. Okay.
Chairman, I totally agree with what you're saying. I'm not disputing there was a lapse, and this lapse should have not happened. So we're trying to make sure to tell the client that this lapse in future should not happen, and it's a very serious consequence. Okay. So if I were to come back again to this committee with the same client, I would feel a bit ashamed because
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kerry, is it a quick point, please?
It is. So we know that Miss Tao is the premises license holder. We know that she's the designated premises supervisor, but we've not heard from her today. I know the Sun's highlighted there's a language barrier, English not being her predominant first language, but I mean, she would know there's a language barrier issue and that she was requested to come to speak today. The interpreter has,
it's not the interpreter, it's the Sun.
Yeah, so the Sun is the interpreter. Has she got anything that she wants to convey, given that it's her, the company's, the premises license, and she being the DPS is in both her names? What does she want to convey, which can be translated into a language that she understands and then broken down to the decision makers here today?
Point understood. Mrs. Tao, do you want to?
Yeah.
Meeting.
1 second. Push the pen. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to translate. Push the pen to see DPS or to see parcel license holder हो इस बात ठीक है तो तुसी की सानू कहना चाहते हो इस चीज बारे ते आगे की करना चाहते हो कुछ बोल
मतलब कि मम्मी ये कहना चाहती कि जी गलती होई नेक्स्ट टाइम नो सी ते मतलब मैं सॉरी मंगना चाहनी ते आगे तो मतलब मैं टाइम दे सा कि हर एक चीज वास्ते मतलब मैं आपे टाइम देवा सारा कुछ चेक करा आगे तो मतलब शॉप ते कोई शिकायत नहीं आनी चाहिए ते कोई कंप्लेंट नहीं आनी चाहिए ते मैं आपे जा सा मैं आपे सारी चीज नु आपे
So what my mother has just said is that first of all she's very apologetic and she apologizes for the mistake that has happened in our store and for the lapse in time that we weren't able to be at the store and take charge, and she didn't handle it to the way that the licensing committee or anyone had needed her or had how she should have acted, yeah, moving forward. Any else?
All right. We've
I
had sufficient opportunity to discuss this. I would like to shut this down now. And
sorry, Chairman, I have a small point.
Well, Mr. Panchal, I'm about to invite you to make some closing remarks. So I want to move into that phase. Can you integrate it into that?
Okay.
Because I'm conscious that time is moving on here. Okay, so so let's move into closing remarks. And Mr. Panchal, I imagine that you will be speaking for the licensee in the first instance.
Yes, Chairman. In my closing remarks, Chairman, is very simple. First of all, that my client is apologetic for what lapse he incurred. I'm going to use the word lapse now, that he incurred during that period of August 29th. He has, during the lapse period and today, or prior to that, from 2012 till today, that there were no breaches. Immediately, matter was taken into hand, matter was dealt with, matter was spoken with the responsible authorities to make sure things were back into correct position. My suggestion to the committee is that we are happy to have a suspension. If there was a shorter than 3 months, we would appreciate that for a month suspension of the premises. But if there were 3 months, so be it. But Chairman, we also agree on page 43 of your bundle, there are conditions which although Daniel Farr's got his conditions laid out on page 32, but there are conditions on page 43 which we propose to agree to those conditions to be put on the license. My other suggestion to the committee that I was trying to make, and I have suggested to the client that we would have a change of DPS, because at the present moment there is a need of change of DPS at the premises, which would take a better control of the premises and a better understanding of the Licensing Act. So my next suggestion would be to the committee would be there would be a change of DPS at the premises.
Okay.
And Chairman, so that's my suggestion to the committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Panchal. Kerry, we're in closing remarks at this stage, so I'm afraid I can't accommodate you. Mr. Tal and Mrs. Tal, do you wish to add anything to what Mr. Panchal has said on your behalf?
No, we thank you for the time for the hearing.
Okay, thank you. PC Butler, do you wish to make any closing remarks? I wonder if we've lost PC Butler. Let's move on then. Mr. Ferrer, do you wish to make any closing comments?
Just very quickly, Chair, just that we support the trading standards review under the crime prevention licensing objectives. We've put forward our proposed conditions that you've got. Following the discussion dialogue stage, we still have concerns slightly with accountability and the role of the DPS. I'm happy to hear that Mr. Panchal has looked at changing the DPS. And we will respect the decision that you and the licensing subcommittee take, and you have my assurances that whatever decision that is made, that our team will have a look at future inspections, visits at the premises to ensure that conditions are complied with and all the licensing objectives are promoted.
Thank you very much. Mr.
Apologies, Mr. Chairman, it's PC Butler. I've been with you all the time. My link fell out. I have no further questions. Apologies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Okay, Mr. Charlie.
Yes, I would just like to reaffirm what licensing David Ferrer has just mentioned. Yes, we've noted the comments that Mr. Pancho have made, and also the change of DPS and the changes that the business proposed, and the review has already outlined what the conditions we would like to see going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lois, any final comments from you?
No further comments from myself, Chairman. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, everybody. The subcommittee will now adjourn and will move to a private deliberation on the review prior to announcing its decision. This could take a while, so you do not have to rejoin the virtual meeting, and you can instead watch the decision announcement live or after the fact on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. A decision notice will also be issued to the applicant in writing within 5 working days of the meeting. So thank you to everyone who has participated in this meeting today. Please remain muted while we end this section of the YouTube broadcast.
Chairman, just last, before we mute and take away from you, I'd request Neil Fraser to just send me an email regarding the decision later on. That will be enough for me to have a look and report back to the client.
I'll send you a link to the video of the decision being announced.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. That's all I ask. Thank you very much for the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Can I now ask for the councillors, legal officer and democratic services officer to remain online? And I politely request that all other parties please now leave the virtual meeting.
Thank you. And I'm just going to move to end the streaming, Chairman, and move to the part 2 section. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we leave?